Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Travis. I'm doing this video to show you guys how to solve problems involving finding the perimeter of composite figures that are set on a coordinate grid or a coordinate plane. All right, so what I want to do first is go over what the perimeter of a figure is. And then I'll use the yellow highlighter here, making sure it's the right thickness. So the perimeter of any figure is going to be the distance or length around its outer edge. So you can see the outer edge of this pink figure is being highlighted in yellow. So we need to find that distance. And to find that distance, we're going to use the grid itself. And we're just going to count square lengths. So each square represents 1 square centimeter. So there's two different ways to count the lengths and add up the lengths. The first way is to count up the vertical lines or horizontal lines, the lines that run along the edge of the squares in the grid. So the lines that I'm talking about are, let's go with yellow, are these lines right here. So this line, this line, this one, and all the way down to the end. So we need to count how many of those we have, okay, horizontally. So let me erase this and start my counting. Okay. So I'll use a red marking for it. So I like to mark each line that I count so I don't lose count or double count a line. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7. Okay, so each one of those represents 1 centimeter. So then at the very top here is going to be 7 centimeters. So next we look at the bottom vertical lines and do the same thing. It's going to be equal to the other side, to the top, but I'll just count them here to be detailed. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's counting the horizontal lines. When you're counting vertical lines, in your problems that you'll get today in your assignment, you also count those as 1, as a length of 1 centimeter each. So the next thing we need to do is count the diagonal lines. The diagonal lines, the lines that run through the center of the square, is just slightly longer than the edges of the square. So the diagonal lines, each one that runs through one little square, is equal to 1.5 centimeters. So we're going to count how many of these diagonal square lengths we have, and then we'll multiply that by 1.5 because that's the length of each one. So I'll change my color here. We'll change it to blue this time to keep track of our counting so we don't double count a diagonal line. So I'll start in the back here. We have 1, 2 diagonals, 3 diagonals, 4, 5, and 6. So we have 6 diagonals. Each one is equal to 1.5. When we multiply those together, we multiply our 1 and our 6 to get 6, and then our 6 and the 0.5 to get 3. So we should get a length of 9. So this back has a collective length of 9. So next we need to count the front. All right, and the front should be the same as the back, but I'll count them to be detailed. We have 1, 2 diagonals, 3 diagonals, and then 1, 2, 3. So that is 6 diagonals. So again, 6 diagonals, each one equaling 1.5. That's going to be 6 times 1.5, which equals 9. So now we have the length of all four, or no, there's, how many sides is that? 6. We have the length of all 6 sides of this polygon here. We have the 7, the 9, the 7, and the 9. The last thing to do is to add those all together to get the total perimeter of the composite figure. So we have our 9. So I'll write perimeter here first so that we remember what we're looking for and what we're solving for. So the perimeter is going to equal the 9 plus the 9 plus, and then I'll change it to keep the color consistent, 7 plus 7. Adding those up, I'll use black. We have 9 plus 9 is 18. And then we're going to add that to 7 plus 7, which is 14. Putting those together, we have, in 18, we have a 10. Another 10, that gives us 20. Hopefully this is not confusing. Plus, we have our 8 and our 4, that gives us 12. Putting those together, we end up with 32. And they don't give us units of, oh yeah, they do. I think it's centimeters. So I was going to say they didn't give us units of measure. The units of measure, we would just write units when they don't give us units of measure, but I believe in the problem they're saying centimeters. So whatever the problem units, whatever units they're telling you to use, go ahead and use those units. For this one, it'll be centimeters. We'll just say centimeters. Okay, so that's how to find the perimeter of a figure on a coordinate grid. The only other thing I need to show you is how to evaluate expressions. So we have this expression here. We have the 2 and 1500ths times 3 squared. So when you have expressions involving more than one operation, we need to take into consideration the order of operations. Order of operations, we use the acronym PEMDAS for it. So I'll write it here. Hopefully you guys remember this. The P represents or stands for parentheses. The E is exponents. The M is multiply. D is divide. A is add. And S is subtract. So we have multiplication here. Writing this out so that I show you what the operations are. We have our 2 and 1500ths times 3 squared. This little floating 2 here is an exponent, okay? This is taking 3 and raising it to the second power. So it belongs to the E in PEMDAS. The small floating 2, the exponent, that number tells us how many of the larger numbers right in front of it we need to multiply together. So because we have the 3, and then just after it we have the exponent 2, it's telling us that we need to take the 3 and multiply it by itself twice. So we could break this up into 3 times 3. That's what 3 squared becomes. So 3 times 3 is 9. And then we bring down our leftovers. We have left over this 2 and 1500ths. And we are multiplying these, so don't lose your parentheses, okay? So you remember that we're multiplying. So I'm just going to multiply by hand really quickly. The next step is then to take our 9, which is the answer to 3 squared, and multiply it to the 2 and 1500ths. So we have our 2 and 1500ths times 9. So in multiplying those together, 5 times 9 is 45. Carry my 4. Then we have 1 times 9 is 9, plus 4 more is 13. And then carry my 1. I get 9 times 2 is 18, plus 1 more is 19. The next step in multiplying decimals is to count the number of digits behind the decimal in the problem. We have, let me change the color here. We have 2 digits behind all decimals in the problem. So we need 2 digits behind the decimal in our actual answer. So that means my decimal is going to go right here. So then the final answer, when we finish evaluating this expression, is going to be 19 and 35/100. All right. So that's how you do the last few problems on your assignment for Monday. Let me know if you have questions by sending me an email.